will hand it over to you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here in our Parramatta office. And for those of you watching from home live, I do hope you can hear me and see myself and the wonderful Meredith well. We're very privileged today to have Meredith joining us in the Parramatta office to share a bit of her story about looking after yourself when perhaps one of your primary responsibilities and calling is to look after someone else, and looking after a person with a brain injury. I met Meredith 3.5 years ago, early on in the journey of supporting her daughter, and I know that at that point she had reached out to get some assistance in looking after herself so that she could continue to look after herself, her family, and Ariana. So I'm very pleased that Meredith accepted my request to come and share her story, and Meredith in turn has reached out to Amara, who's very graciously joined us here today to share some of the tips and techniques she shared with Meredith a few years ago. So I'll hand it over to you now, Meredith, and we'll enjoy listening to your story.
Thanks very much, Lauren, for the challenge of presenting tonight. It's been really useful, and I'll talk more about that. Welcome, everybody. Welcome those of you who are here and those of you who are listening remotely. So I'm Meredith. I grew up on a farm in country Victoria, surrounded by bush, which is where I go to reinvigorate myself. I was nurtured by parents and a grandmother who loved the bush and all creatures and plants that thrive within it. And these strong role models really instilled in me a natural curiosity, and I became a seeker of meaning, which took me way beyond a boundary-based Presbyterian church to yoga and an ashram in South India, where East and West melded so well together. Moving beyond Australian shores early in my 20s led to a love of Nepal and India, and ultimately to marrying a man from Afghanistan, Assad, here in Sydney in 1997, and having 2 beautiful daughters. My love of language and connection became my vocation, first as a speech pathologist for 6 years, and then for the past 32 years as an English language teacher and trainer to overseas students, and more recently to refugees and migrants through a distance learning program at TAFE. Life was coasting along okay, and then this happened. Our youngest daughter, Ari, was diagnosed in June 2015, halfway through HSC, with a bilateral frontal brain tumour, a germinoma. So began many months of intense intervention. I'll never forget our first visit with neurosurgeon Dr. Charlie Teo, and him talking to us dead straight, no softeners. Do nothing and Ari would be unlikely to survive till the end of the year. Do a biopsy and take the path of chemo and radiotherapy, and where doctors would become part of our life. He also said it was very unlikely that Ari's short-term memory would ever come back. And most of what he said became reality. We took the second option, as to do nothing was not even a choice. I'm very glad I hadn't had much lived experience of what this kind of intervention meant. Ignorance enabled us to simply survive by putting one foot in front of the other. So the outcomes for Ari, her short-term memory, so this is early on, her short-term memory was very lost, so we're talking about 4 years ago. Her communication was greatly compromised, and executive functions, so planning and organising, were very limited. At that stage, Ari could barely sustain a jog for 20 metres, and she was unable to sit still for more than 5 minutes. But finally, at the end of 2015, she was tumour-free. So 4 years on, just to contextualise where we are at now, I'll show you a video, and unfortunately, I think you possibly can't see it on the PowerPoint, but Ari was asked to be a Wall of Fame ambassador for Royal Ride Rehab, and Channel 9 came and did a news story, and this Ari featured in the news story. So I hope you can see a little bit of it. It just goes for a couple of minutes.
Walking, talking and eating. They are simple daily tasks we often take for granted. But for thousands of Australians, they're forced to retrain their brain after suffering often unexpected traumatic head injuries. Today, 6 special patients graduated Ride's Royal Rehab with an emotional celebration. Standing on a podium in front of a crowd used to be a familiar feeling for Ari Laughter. Once a champion runner, she's instead been in a race to survive an aggressive brain tumour for the past 4 years. Today, though, aged 21, Ari is back out in front and winning once more. On the eve of Brain Injury Awareness Week, Ari and 6 fellow former patients today joined Royal Rehab's Wall of Fame.
The journey, when someone comes here, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But at the end of that finishing line, there's something gold. To some, this may seem just a simple wall with a few photographs, but to the patients, the staff, and the Wall of Fame inductees, every story, every obstacle overcome here serves as the greatest source of inspiration. Tim Davies, 9 News.
So that was in August this year, and I'll talk more about this later. So this is the story of my personal experience learning how to manage the intricacies of brain injury. And I hope by sharing my story that you can find points of connection and embrace your own vulnerability. As Brené Brown said in her TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, we often try to numb vulnerability, but you can't selectively numb emotion. You can't numb the hard feelings without numbing joy, gratitude, and happiness. Then we become miserable. So this past 4.5 years has been an experience which continues to have both raw grief and joyful hope sitting alongside each other. And this reflects the paradoxes of brain injury, because none of Ari's experience can be rationalized. It happened and we're living through it now. Finding ways to nurture myself has been very challenging, but also very rewarding, as I appreciate moments much more now. Mindfulness practice has really given me an anchor in a very rough sea, and has given me the space and the chance to refill inside. So let's take some time to settle into this space now. Amara has been a very important person in this process, especially since last October, when Ari started one-to-one mindfulness and yoga practices with her. So Amara, thank you.
Hello, welcome. So I thought we'd go through some mindful movement together. So maybe a bit different to maybe understandings of movement. For some of us, we might be more focused on how far we stretch or maybe how strong we can be. But the angle we'll be moving through in the mindfulness applications for well-being is being more available to feeling into the body as we do these simple movements. So coming into the present sensations of the body. So I thought we'd just do something quite simple. And one of the layerings of well-being is your own authority around how far you wish to move. So perhaps you'll come from a more sort of moving, so it's a more form of a pleasure, comfortable extension rather than an outcome of how far we can stretch. So coming into a sitting position that feels comfortable for your body. And you're the only one who can feel that, your way of sitting. So just coming with the hands and deliberately stretching your fingers and squeezing your fingers. It's that simple act of feeling the skin stretching. Maybe you can see the skin stretching and then the closing of the fingers. And one of the layers that supports that ease, that clear thinking, is finding your rhythm in the movement. And of course, minds think a lot. Some minds might be worrying right now. Not a problem, just in a friendly way, coming back just to what we're doing. Maybe feeling the movements coming up through your arms. Muscles being extended and engaged. And now we'll shift the shaping to drawing your hands back towards you. Just going to get a timing here, excuse me. Yeah, so hands coming back and tucking the hands in. So in the mindful training, we're not banishing thoughts, we're not wrestling with trying to stop thoughts. It's just recognizing the mind does think, tends to think a lot, especially when we're stressed. And just continually bringing the mind back, the focus back just to what we're doing now. Now exploring a rotation. Rolling the hands around, and you can have the eyes closed or eyes open and seeing your hands moving through space. These joints tend to be very agile joints. Yeah, and then moving in the opposite direction. It's just your timing, what feels comfortable. Skin stretching, muscles moving. That's relaxing the face. And now we'll move up to elbows compressing. Noticing what's available there. What sensations in your body can you feel? And then the opening. And again, just calling up your authority around what feels good in a stretch right now. And then the squeezing in. Opening out. Sometimes the mind can be more settled when we move to the breath. So you might like to explore that while your body's breathing in, coming in, compressing, and then as your body's breathing out, flexing. Beautiful. And once more. And flexing and relaxing. So coming up to shoulder joints. Just do something simple like this. So this is a shaping that you might like to explore. And for some of us, that's not a comfortable shaping. So inviting you to perhaps finding your way. And I've taught some people who prefer more like forward, a rolling movement. Some people prefer more like a coming across their body. So yeah, maybe trusting just the way you'd like to move your body right now, without so much engaging in the right or wrong way. Yeah, so bring up some freedom in movement can bring more ease into the mind, nervous system. If you're doing a circle, perhaps exploring an opposite shaping. Your way, your timing. Yeah. Allowing your spine to move. Opening and softening. Oh, and now resting. Again, your choice of eyes open or closed, and deliberately resting. Coming maybe to your face. I think I'll close my eyes for a moment. Yeah, and maybe calming your eyes a little. Maybe exploring a softened jaw. Ease in the shoulders. And now move through the neck. So you wish, eyes opened, and inviting your shoulders to be more at ease. Sometimes they hunch up. Maybe allowing them to come down, and just carefully lowering your head to one side. Again, finding a feel-good stretch. the other. Just all those shifting, changing sensations in your neck. You might notice this movement's going right down into your lower back, simple as it is. Maybe feeling it moving through your chest and belly. Exploring moment to moment. Not a problem with all those thoughts. Mind think in all different ways. In a friendly way, coming back to the physical sensations. And yeah, once again, coming to center and again, just checking the jaw is maybe a little softer, shoulders a little down. Maybe gently swivel your head around. But for some of us, it might be a centimeter. And then gently swiveling. Softly returning. In your timing, exploring where it flows for you. Now resting your head in center. Some bodies hold stress in backs, some bodies hold stress in necks. So again, just calling up lots of care as you sway your head from side to side. Not trying to extend too far or trying to win a race. It's just being here now. These shifting, changing sensations. Centering. Lightly lower your chin down and rolling your head lightly from one shoulder to the other. Perhaps checking your shoulders are down, your jaw's loose. Maybe even relaxing your tongue as you roll your head. It's here to be felt, moment to moment. And coming to center. Moving through the spine in some simple shapings, and shapings that your body does in everyday life. Spines move forward, they move back, they twist, stretch up to get items out of the cupboard or up your washing. So we're just moving the spine through its central shapings. So hands on the knees, and just slide your hands up towards the hips as you arch your belly forward, chest forward, head back a little. It's a backward arch, and you may feel that in your chest and abdomen. And then sliding your hands back to your knees. So just back to ease. Yeah, so just easy does it. Sliding the hands towards your hips. Rocking your belly forward, your chest forward. That's it, elbows back, head back if that suits you. And then softening back to center. You might like to do it to the breath while your body's breathing in, arching back. While your body's breathing out, softening to center. So just once more in your own timing. Just enjoying a shaping rather than forcing the body into a shaping. Beautiful. And centering. Spines twist. Yeah. So, in your base sitting shaping, turning around to the right, maybe left hand on the right thigh and right hand on the arm of your chair or onto the back of the chair. And again, your choice of a comfortable twist. So your authority around that, and then softening to center, and then carefully feeling those changing sensations in your body as you move to the other side. And that's softening back to center. finishing on your left side. Raising the arms up. So again, the height that's suitable for your body. So it's again, at authority and what's comfortable for your body right now. And then coming forward and lowering the head down a little bit. So now we've got a rolled spine, and you might be feeling how your belly is compressing. And then coming up and lowering the arms down, softening into your belly. Beautiful. So while breathing in, coming up, you can feel those changes in your upper body. Breathing out just what feels good for your body. Feet nice and firm. And then suiting you to the breath while breathing in, up. And breathing out, down. So once more, if it suits you, your timing, your way. And then please resting your arms downwards, hands on your lap, knees, wherever it feels comfortable. Perhaps the eyes lightly closed. Doesn't suit you, then eyes open and just calming your vision. Feeling yourself sitting in the chair. And feeling your body breathing. Feeling your body breathing. Nothing to change here, just allowing your body to breathe just the way it'd like to. Breath after breath. And thank you. I'll pass it back over to Meredith.
Thank you very much, Amara. It's very good to be guided so well and into this mindful space and feel re-energized. So this is a story of hope and meaning making, and I'll talk through a range of processes that reflect what was and still is present. I describe these as chapters, and for each chapter I'll reflect on what nurtured me. Meaning making. So the meteor of a diagnosis that shattered dreams and visions for Ari's future. But at least there was now a physical reason to explain the last 6 months as Ari slowly slipped away from us. She'd been diagnosed with anorexia at the beginning of 2014 and thus began a path delving into psychological depths that were way beyond anything I knew. Ari recovered in 6 months from anorexia, but then her mind started to shut down. Her running went downhill, but her resilience was astounding. We saw psychologists and a wonderful psychotherapist, Jacqueline, but we couldn't reach Ari. She still went to training, but she was now so slow. She was having episodes of incontinence, and she stopped seeing friends. Everything was, I'm fine, when she clearly wasn't. Trying to get Ari focused on Year 12 study and remembering English essays and themes was like trying to push a wheelbarrow full of concrete up Heartbreak Hill. It breaks my heart to think about the effort she put in, but to no avail. Our GP finally recommended an MRI on June the 24th, 2015. So trying to get my head around the diagnosis, I went into survival mode, only being able to comprehend moment by moment. But this this triggered immediately a confrontation with death and dying. What if we lost Ari completely? Was Ari only meant to be on this planet for 17 years? Grief is such a deeply physical thing that it nearly shut me down on many occasions. I planned Ari's funeral in the days around her initial brain surgery, and I guess this was the start of the grieving process. But I knew in my mind that it also had to be a celebration with her beloved running squad there to send her off to a place where she could run free. None of this made sense. It was like, why Ari? Forever an unanswered question that I feared would totally zap my energy and spirit if I completely held on to it for too long. So instead, I focused on allowing curiosity in. What can I learn from this? How can I make meaning out of this? Life's lessons are surely the most challenging and are there to be grasped and learnt from. How can I help other people who are going through something similar? Where were those other families? It felt like we were very alone with Ari as we put one foot in front of the other. Perspective changed. The world shrank to the confines of intensive care and the wards and Ari's very basic physical needs. Life was very visceral. I danced for joy when I heard of 2 hours sleep and bowel motions. How could the world be going on as normal outside? So what nurtured me in those early stages was the wide, wide network of love and caring that stretched from the little country town of Yea in northeastern Victoria, where my mother still lives, to our family in Melbourne, to Sydney, and to the prayers of many at mosques in America and Afghanistan. We were being held by family and friends and the wonderful staff at the hospital who became our lifesavers. My faith in humanity leapt as foot-long pizzas in front of warm fires appeared and texts to check in on us flew in every day. Neighbours left casseroles and cards on the doorstep when we wearily returned home to crash exhausted each night. Something else that really nurtured me was a Mindfulness CD from the Cancer Council, Dr. Aries Laughter. At night in bed, I'd listen to Dr. Aries Laughter's soft, gentle voice. And it took me beyond the worries of the day and gave me a chance for a few moments to rest in mindfulness. There is nothing to be fixed in this moment. Simply allow your experience to be your experience without needing it to be other than what it is. Her words were immensely sustaining, and I kept returning to them. And a little bar at St Leonard's Station, a quiet private space, and it became a weekly ritual where 3 friends, and one of my dear friends is here tonight, we drank gin and tonics together. I had the space and permission to say it as it really was. No pretending, no putting on a brave face, the space to be vulnerable. We laughed, we cried, we held hands, and that space opened up to support these friends too, because every one of us has experiences of deep grief. But the gift of sharing that is truly friendship on a very intimate level. And so to the warrior woman, a very elemental force, an animal instinct of protection that rose to the surface as I became a hypervigilant warrior woman, probably pretty scary. This was very surprising as it was deep within my being. No stone was going to be left unturned under my watch. I would chase doctors down hospital corridors asking for progress reports. But what this did was create a hypervigilance that still remains with me today. It was so hard to let go and trust that anyone could look after our beautiful girl. What nurtured me in hospital was the inspiration of one of Ari's beautiful running friends, Izzy, who at the age of 16 created the book of Ari. She brought this in. She thought it would be a lovely thing for when people came to visit Ari in hospital, they could write something in there, they could draw. And this was her first entry. And the wisdom of youth at that age to come out with these words, I think was amazing. So stars cannot shine without darkness. Ari, you've been through hell and back. You have fought through the hardest of times and you inspire me. I'm so proud of you and everything you have accomplished. I look forward to knowing you for a long time and then some. Always remember, I'm here for you and so is the A-team. We love you, never forget that. I found it quite astounding that, these words of wisdom could come from, someone so young, but obviously someone who had that deep empathy. Also in the book of Ari were these wonderful drawings. So 3 of her school friends came in and they brought such light and life and laughter. And they drew these beautiful pictures and wrote things. And it's a book that we treasure forever. So what also nurtured me at this time was my own journal writing. I found it was a very important part of making meaning because I could write what I couldn't necessarily say. So I've kept a journal for a long time. This was a journal entry in August 2015 when Ari was just about to go in for another brain operation. And you'll see in the picture, Ari hanging on to Asad the lion. My husband's name in Farsi means lion. And Ari got given the lion when she was born. So she requested that Asad the lion would be there to protect her when she went into her operations. So I wrote this in my journal before one of these operations. Ari, we love and cherish you. We place you in the hands of the surgeons, and we will be there when you wake up to hold you and love you and welcome you back, to give you the strength of a lion to continue your journey. Life is what it is: breath, heart, kindness, and love. In the early days, Synapse, Lauren mentioned that we met probably 4 years ago. Ari was an outpatient at Royal Ride Rehab with the brain injury community team. And we heard about Synapse and I met Lauren. The NDIS was just rolling out in Northern Sydney and no one seemed to know much at all. And there certainly seemed to be very limited services for Ari. Lauren provided incredible practical support in helping me put together Ari's first NDIS plan. But it wasn't only that, Lauren, it was your warmth and humanity that really shone through. And that support continues with Synapse through Sharon, our support coordinator, and Michael, who painstakingly help us go through each NDIS iteration. And they stand beside me as warriors for Ari's wellbeing and needs and her rights. So we are now a warrior team, and that's immensely supportive. We're not alone. When laughter returns. From day one, I thought, how can we bring a lightness to this? I can't go in and see Ari every day and cry. That certainly wouldn't have been any good for her or nor me. So I endeavoured to create a lightness that, while at the same time making space for grief and anxiety, but in my own time. Here is the paradox again: love, laughter, and pain. I'm learning how to acknowledge these different emotions and to give each of them space, to name them and to give each of them space. What nurtured me, this was in July 2015, a text message from a colleague. So it was only 3 weeks after Ari had been diagnosed and had operations. Thinking of you, Meredith, it will get better. You will all feel happy again and the sun will shine. It's hard to keep believing that, but you must. This became my mantra: the sun will shine again. It seemed impossible, but Sal was right. What also nurtured me there was the hilarity we had in intensive care. Doesn't seem to go together, but it did. One of Ari's friends brought in celebrity heads, and Ari was really sick. She was going through, very intensive chemotherapy. But, you know, who could not laugh when you had "I'm a bar of chocolate" on your head and trying to elicit that from Ari? Ari loved it. So we managed to shake the curtains in ICU and made the space around Ari as lively and as normal as possible. Ari had a very low white blood cell count at different stages during chemotherapy, and so she was extremely susceptible to infection. Visitors, yes, but gowns, masks, and gumboots on. This was challenging. My sister Jenny and my niece Tess were coming up from Melbourne for the weekend, and I thought, we're going to have a miserable weekend because we'll have masks. But we had the best weekend ever. We drew on the masks, we laughed till we cried, we made ducks and rabbits and scary monsters. And so, you know, even the most serious of situations can be turned on its head, at least for a little while. And again, the spirit and creativity of the young. Ari had lost all her hair by this stage, and I invited her friends into the hospital for a hat party. One of them bought this very becoming purple wig. So that became a great prop to be silly in. So I think, you know, hospital can be very serious, but it's also a time to be a bit silly. Also, what really nurtured me was the re-emergence of Aries Laughter. Ari used to be a real belly laugher. She would bend over double and hold her stomach and just shake with silent mirth. And then she seemed to lose the ability to express strong emotions, dulled by drugs and massive intervention. Slowly and unexpectedly, laughter returned. This is one of my favorites. December 2015, after a shower a couple of days ago, Ari appears with a towel over her head. And I said, "Oh, Ari, you look like Mary, aka Jesus's mother." And she says, "No, you're Mary." And I said, "Oh, so who are you?" And she said, "I'm God. And so you need to worship me." So, you know, priceless words. And it really gave me hope. You know, hope was burning bright then that Ari's sense of humor was rising up beyond the fog of steroids once again. There's my girl. And now she loves comedy. So she'll go to a comedy show, she'll sit in the front row, and she'll be cheering with the best of them. So that's really reassuring and lovely. And so to the memory keeper. I was so scared in those early days that I would forget what Ari used to be like. I would replay every moment of joy that she'd brought to my mind and desperately try to remember what she looked like, because now on the outside, she seemed so different. Steroids and hormonal misbalances had changed Ari's body shape completely. But she was emerging in a different metamorphosis. And I struggled to let the other go free and to accept the unfolding new. I wrote a poem in my journal, "But What About My Girl?" in December 2015. It was the time when, so Ari was halfway through HSC when she was diagnosed. So by the end of December 2015, all her friends had finished the exams, had got their ATARs, and were excitedly planning their next stage. And, you know, it's good to look back on this because I found that a very challenging time. But what about my girl? I was looking for neat stages of grieving that would tie off, finished. Okay, now I accept Ari and her new self. But it doesn't work like that. No matter how hard I try not to, comparing whacks me in the heart. As friends get their ATARs and dance around freely, what about my girl? Where does she fit in this scheme of life? What's she missing out on? As we try to rebuild her world, jealousy, envy, selfishness abound. Am I really happy about others' achievements? Can I freely congratulate when part of me feels so sad and wonders deeply about these contrasts? Face it, feel it, acknowledge it, explore it, make space for it all. Heart constriction feels like it really limits my giving, and I cry, but what about my girl? Then I see her breaking into a jog, buoyed by the enthusiasm of encouragement, and slipping into her body more easily. The journey of this rebuilding, what an opportunity to joyfully step up, baby steps in a teenage body. Don't let these slip by. Kids running around the park, chattering with abandonment, slurping ice creams, running barefoot, arms linked with friends, secret societies bonded. But what about my girl? She stands alone, perplexed, a bit confused, looking at the world from her bench of solitude. What's she thinking? She smiles at passers-by. They smile back, perhaps acknowledging her difference. My girl, she's there still. Last year, but what about my girl, surfaced again because it was the year of the 21sts and no invitations came. Have you all forgotten about Ari? Why don't you get in touch? And then one invitation came, and sometime later another, and one more. These were precious. Let go of the other. So what nurtured me at this stage? I decided we had to make our own celebrations rather than sitting back and waiting for them to come to us. So we began the ritual of Survival Day. At home, 1 year, 2 years on, in June 2016 and 2017, we invited a warm, loving gathering of Ari's old friends and her wonderful GP to mark the occasion. Ari was a survivor. This was a celebration that turned into Life Day, and by year 4, the anniversary, we were living the life in France for 3 weeks. So there seemed little need to mark it in a somber way. But rituals are, however, important. So Ari turned 21 in September last year, and I thought we really have to make this a celebration. And we did. We hired the local community centre in the park and had to convince the North Sydney Council that we weren't going to have an open slather Facebook event that required security guards. So we had about 40 people. Ari was a great hip hop dancer. We found a group called Junkyard Beats, and we invited 2 of them along to really add some energy to the night, and that was fantastic. Kabuli Palau, Ari's favourite Afghan dish, made by Auntie in the living room on the floor. So it was all a real community effort. I had no idea how Ari would manage being the focus of attention all night, but it was so worth it. She was so present and she just enjoyed every moment. And now to the chapter, Walking Alongside Ari. I'm learning how to walk alongside Ari at her pace, literally and figuratively. It's not my natural stride. I do things. I'm a woman of action, but our body rhythms now are so different. But this is a unique opportunity to create another story and to turn my do and endless lists into simply being with Ari and accepting her as enough right now. A chance to develop that part of myself which I have always had a yearning for. Ari now has what many of us strive for our whole lives, that ability to be present and joyful from the inside out. I can learn so much from Ari, but this is my greatest challenge. Some of her repetitive behaviours trigger deep irritation and frustration. When she struggles with initiating the simplest of things, like turning on the bathroom tap or brushing her teeth, this can be excruciating. I have to exercise a great deal of self-control and walk away, take a deep breath, and separate the behaviour from Ari as a person. All I want to do is jump into her brain and rewire those neurons. Coping with difference brings you face to face with your own values and limitations. I need to help Ari reinterpret the world with its dominant verbal discourse, but also hold space for her to do it differently and learn from her. And I'm realizing that this is very much a two-way process, and it involves me rewriting my own script to allow the time and space for Ari to teach me. What nurtures me is Ari's joyful presence. She's funny, she's joyful, she's loving, and she's unendingly patient. This beautiful picture of 2 hands came about when she was in post-surgery and intensive care. And we would leave her at night and she couldn't really communicate very well, but she would hold up her hand in half a heart, and we would join together. So it was communication on a very deep level, and it became our signature. Daily I hear from Ari, "I love you, Mum," and I say, "I love you too, darling," and she says, "Not as much as I love you," which is probably true because she's giving very purely of herself. But you know what nurtures me are times when I can just hang out with Ari and be her mum, not a therapist, not a personal organizer, not a checking medications person, not a booking support people. And there was a moment recently when we were, a morning recently when we were able to do this. So I feel guilty when I'm at home and I have all these organization to do around Ari, because the hardest thing for her to do is occupy herself without any prompting from someone else. Her go-to is Candy Crush and TV, which is okay for a while, but not all the time. So on weekends, we often go for a walk or a swim or explore to get out of the house. And we discovered this lovely exhibition at the Botanical Gardens, an exhibition of life-size koalas hidden in the nooks of the gardens, to promote awareness of the plight of our poor koalas. We got a map. There were 22 of these statues around the gardens. We explored all the nooks and crannies of the gardens. Ari found 14 of the koalas and delighted in being much more observant than I was. And we then went off and had a swim in a beautiful pool on the harbour, the Boy Charlton pool. And it was just a morning when life was very sweet and unhurried. But we don't have enough of those. What nurtures me at the moment, on my ongoing journey, is the support of Jacqueline, our wonderful psychotherapist. She was one of the few professionals who knew Ari before her brain injury. And she's someone who has the language to challenge me to look at everything from left field, to tap into intuition, and to help create meaning in this very different, unimagined story. I'm deeply grateful for Jacqueline walking alongside me as I talked through and created this webinar. And speaking of gratitude, a couple of years ago, I came across Dr. Lauren Tober, another wonderful psychotherapist who practices up near Byron Bay. She had a 7-day capturing gratitude online practice. She set a theme for each of these 7 days, and the aim was to capture a photo that reflected that theme, such as nature or community or myself. For each aspect, we acknowledged what we were grateful for, we contemplated what we were grateful for, and then we captured the essence of that gratitude in a photo and posted the photo on Instagram. So I went looking for gratitude just in the ordinary everyday, and through this practice I found it. It was creative and it was exciting. MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. Amara's given us a taste of that and will give us another taste at the end. A chance meeting with Amara in around about September, October 2015 led me to MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. Amara had recently done a course with them, and I just thought that's exactly what I need right now. But Ari was going through intensive radiotherapy at that time as an outpatient, and I couldn't imagine how could I possibly attend 8 weeks, one evening a week. But I managed 7 out of 8 sessions, and I now regularly do some form of mindfulness several times a week, whether it be doing my physio exercises mindfully, listening to music on the train, or joining an MBSR monthly group to feel part of a community of fellow seekers. The patterns of nourishment that we lay down are seeds that will grow in many unexpected ways. So creating space in my life for that which is life-giving has opened me up and given me tools to build my own resilience. We can't practice compassion with other people if we can't treat ourselves kindly. The MBSR course is experiential through breathing practices, body scans, mindful movement, and open awareness practices. It's all about acknowledgement of what is and a gentle acceptance of who we are right now in this moment. So these practices have certainly helped me to open up to curiosity and awareness. And they've given me permission to take time out. It feels like I've come home. At one of the recent monthly meetings, the facilitator read a poem, and this was an extract from it that really resonated with me. The poem was called The Quiet Power by Tara Moyer. And I came to know that this was it, the quiet power. I could give something mighty, lasting, that stopped the wheel of chaos by tending to the river inside, keeping the water rich and deep, and keeping a bench for you to visit. So mindfulness has been a really important part of building my resilience. And so to letting go, mentally and physically. How could I leave Ari? I'm the only one with my finger on the pulse of practicalities. No one can replace me. Not true, but that's what you think. Every night when I left hospital, I had to trust that the nurses and doctors would watch over Ari until the next morning. It took 2 years for me to take time out and go away for 5 days without Ari. This became possible through building a support team, Team Ari, that I trusted and could rely on. There was plenty of catastrophizing on my part and a PhD list of what to do for every minute while I was away. And one time I actually, I was writing these lists the night before I went away, and I think I forgot to press send and came back, and one of the support people said, "No, I didn't get your email." And of course, everything was fine. But I realized that by going away, I was not only giving myself time and freedom, but giving Ari the time and space to develop her own identity and negotiate relationships without me. And I think this is really important on an ongoing basis. So I chose to do something physical because, as I said, I've always loved the bush. Out in the bush, it takes me back to what I love, and it gets me out of here and into my body. So in March 2017, I went to Tassie for 5 days. We stayed in a cabin at the foot of Cradle Mountain with some dear friends. And every day we did a 6 or 7 hour hard physical walk. And it was just wonderful because all I thought about was putting one foot in front of the other. And I'd crash exhausted at night. Then I'd think, oh, I've got to check on Ari. So in the mists at night with the wombats, I'd go out with my phone and, of course, no reception. So I had to give over to that and give over trust that Ari was going to be okay. Last year in June 2008, I went on a wonderful trip to Kakadu and Catherine Gorge, and that included a 5-day walk from Gorge 13 in Catherine Gorge down to Gorge 5. It was really hard, backpacks on back, really hot, no trails. We had a guide, but I didn't, that physical challenge really grounded me. I didn't worry about Ari because there was nothing I could actually do. We had set in place, there was a satellite phone that our guide had, so I knew that if necessary, people could contact me. But life was so full of beauty on that walk, and we shared the rivers with freshwater crocodiles. We slept under the stars, and my dear, dear friends drank port around the fire at night. So it was, I came back really refreshed. I was really excited to see me, but she'd been fine. Just recently, I did another walk to Colo River, an overnight walk where actually there's a lot of bushfires now. And just going into that wilderness and one step at a time. And I didn't worry about Ari because, again, there's nothing I could do. I'd set in place the supports that I trusted. And we went skinny dipping in the river, and we relished just being in this wilderness with no one around and feeling the ancient spirits. And when I arrived closer back to Sydney, of course I texted, and Ari was fine. She had actually gone away herself overnight for a weekend. So I think the fact that she has been able to go away has been, very exciting for her. I also plan an annual weekend away with my eldest daughter, Shanaz, because in all of this, and I'm sure those of you who have other children apart from your loved one with a brain injury, it's very hard to, I feel very guilty about the lack of time I've been able to spend with my eldest daughter. Shanna's started working a couple of years ago, and she didn't want money for her birthday, but experiences. So we went to the Hunter Valley and experienced the delights of wine tours, Mudgee and hot air ballooning, and I am terrified of heights. So I can't imagine how I actually got in that balloon. But again, it's that curiosity. 4:30 in the morning, the balloon was being prepared by this fantastic Japanese pilot, and I was so pleased he was Japanese because I knew he would pay absolute care and attention to detail. So I didn't even notice when we slowly lifted off the ground. I must say, when we got up to 2,000 feet, I was thinking, I think I would rather be down a bit further. But as we were coming down and we saw kangaroos hopping beneath us and the sun rising, and really it was absolutely beautiful. So we make that a regular thing, the long weekend in October, and that's immensely nourishing for me. And I threw my hat over the wall and we went to France, Ari and I, this year. We'd been invited to a 3-day wedding in the south of France, and I was turning 60 at the beginning of July. It was a lot of deliberation. Should I go? Should I not go? Should I go by myself? Should I take Ari? But actually, I was telling someone at work that I said, I'm going to France. And she said, oh, how lovely. And I said, yeah, with Ari. And she looked shocked. She said, oh, you're taking your daughter. And I said, well, why not? 3-day wedding in France, the Eiffel Tower, macaroons, what will Ari not love about that? And this colleague's reaction to news, to me telling her that Ari was coming with me, actually set my resolve to go and to just, I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but to make it into an adventure and set my intention for what I wanted to get out of it and what I wanted Ari to get out of it. I had a page of requests and information translated into French by my neighbour, who was French. Number one being, where's the nearest toilet? Ari loved the trip, and so did I. She found it very challenging and exhausting because, of course, we went in the heat wave. But she popped up each day like a champagne cork, and she'd say, where are we today? Are we in Paris? Are we in Sydney? So it really helped to, it just showed me that, don't limit yourself. And Hawaii is top of Ari's list now. And finally, to Thelma and Louise weekends with an old friend of mine, camping this time not in the wilderness, but in bang-in suburbia. And just that feeling of being alive to the elements as we dived into the ocean. And really lovely to have that space and time away. So, what enables me to let go is, as I said, entrusting Ari to others and giving Ari the space to grow. It was quite a relief when I moved from agency managed support to an online platform of Higher Up, because then Ari and I could meet people. We always arranged to have a Zoom online meeting with support workers, potential support workers, and you can tell in the first 5 minutes if there's going to be a connection there. So I felt that we had more control, and we've built up a team of 7 or 8 support workers, some who are very regular and some who we see occasionally. So that's been, really great. And I have set up a private Facebook group for these support workers, because that saved me a whole lot of time. I don't need to private message everybody, are you available? Are you available? And I can decide if I do want someone in particular, I can send them a private message. So that's been really great. And Ari's been away for 3 weekends. She's, over the last 3 years, she's been to an eco resort in Port Stephens for 2 nights. She spent 2 nights at the Vibe Hotel in Newcastle, where they provided accommodation free because the support worker father had connections with the hospitality industry. Amazing. And more recently, she went down to Jamboree Water Park for the weekend. And now, so we've come a long way. Just after the Wall of Fame Channel 9 news was on, I got a message that night from an old work colleague, and she'd seen the Channel 9 story, and she said, wow, just seen you and Ari on TV. So wonderful that she's fit and well. Proud moments for you all. You must have such a smile. Hard times behind you. Words that are so true in so many ways. It was a real celebration, the Wall of Fame, coupled with deep emotion as it brought back to the forefront where we started 4 years ago and where we are now. Seeing Ari stand up in front of 100 people and give a speech at the ceremony was completely awesome. But hard times are not over. You know, this is not a happy forever after story, as you all know. Ari is now doing work training 3 days a week with Fighting Chance at Jigsaw and Avenue in French's Forest. She volunteers on Monday evenings with Little Athletics, coaching the Tiny Tots. She used to be a paid coach with Little Athletics, so she's been able to get back into that community. She volunteers with SSI, Settlement Services International, at their community kitchen in Auburn once a fortnight, helping prepare meals for migrants and refugees. So her life is full, but the warrior woman is still here, and it's time to talk about some of the hard basket issues: independent supported accommodation, financial independence. And I was very grateful for the last SynapseCarers workshop that I came along to and heard Max and Michael talking about some of these issues in a very open, hopeful way. I really want to grow Team Ari with the key team members, her neuropsychologist, her therapists, Amara, and a personal organizer. I heard about lifestyle coordinator last year at a higher up webinar, and it's something I haven't put in place, but there was a family there who had actually hired one of their support workers as the coordinator for the team. And I just thought that is the best idea, because then that freed them up to spend time with their son as their son. So this lifestyle coordinator met with the young man and the team in a pub once a month, and they planned out what was going to happen in the next month. So I think it's a brilliant idea. I haven't quite worked out how I'm going to do it. I really want to grow Ari's circle of support, because the connections with her old friends, because her long-term memory is fine, those friends are her memory, and they're all so busy. So it's how can we grow this circle of support, and how can she meet new friends and build that belonging? My discernment barometer is on who or what is life-giving for me, and also what is life-giving for Ari. But I reckon, you know, hopes and dreams are there to be fulfilled. So Hawaii, here we come. So I'd like to thank Lauren very much for the opportunity to put our story out there. It's been a privilege and a learning and a challenge to look back on what has been and to process it on a deeper level. But I sincerely believe that sharing story offers such gifts and creates really important connections. Thank you everyone for coming, and for those of you tuning in online, and for those of you who will tune in down the track. I look forward very much to hearing your stories. So let's finish by creating a few moments of life-giving space with Amara, after which there'll be time for questions. Thank you.
Oh, welcome again. Thanks, Meredith. How inspiring. Thank you. Oh, so I thought we'd come together again and do a simple sitting practice. So as Meredith said, there's lots of different practices we can learn to help us to ground, to center, to nourish, to bring up clarity, even in very difficult situations. So I thought we'd do a simple sit practice. This also can be done standing. So it's just starting, finding your way of sitting in the chair. I think I'd prefer to have my eyes open for this practice, and you feel free to have the eyes closed or open. And if you're choosing to have the eyes open, perhaps just calming your vision a little bit. So more just resting your vision downwards lightly, perhaps something on the floor. And again, just to remind you, encourage you that we're not trying to stop the mind from thinking. We can't do that. But what we are doing is noticing how thoughts do arrive. Maybe some thoughts have an emotional charge. And these are very human experiences. So we're not at war with our own thoughts or our emotions. And Meredith expressed this really well. And one of the words I heard her say often was curiosity. We're developing this curiosity to thinking and how that affects our body. And we get very skilled at noticing when the body's moving into stress, noticing thoughts that are taking us into stress. I don't know about you, but I don't tend to think so well when that stress is building. So in the mindfulness trainings, we're finding tools to acknowledge, yep, the mind's in a stressful state, the body's in a stressful state. And how can I self-regulate? How can I come back into more ease so I can think clearly, so I can navigate through some of these challenging experiences in life? So I thought just a practical practice that you can do at any time sitting. And mindful training, they are skills that we're developing. So the more we practice, the more skilled out we can become. So yeah, just feeling yourself now sitting in the chair, just as you are. For example, feeling the pressure the buttocks is having on the chair. Just that simple body experience. And noticing thighs, their contact with the chair. Just whatever you're noticing, that sensation of touch. And you may be noticing some parts of your lower body feel uncomfortable. Maybe some parts feel uncomfortable, comfortable. So yeah, that curiosity to body sensations. And then coming down to your feet. Maybe your feet feel warm, or maybe some parts feel cool. Maybe some parts of your feet you can feel in shoes. Maybe some parts of your feet are on the floor. Yeah, just exploring. Maybe noticing clothing touching your legs, or maybe air on your legs. So nothing to make happen, nothing to fix, just right now, simply being aware of your physical sensations as we explore the body, sitting here in the chair. Now bringing your attention to your hands, the shaping of your fingers, perhaps the feeling of jewelry touching your fingers or maybe your wrists. And of course the mind thinks. That's what they do. And whatever thoughts are moving through your mind, not a problem. Simply coming back now to perhaps noticing any pressure under your armpits. Maybe warmth. Feeling the clothing on the trunk of your body. Perhaps exploring clothing on your back. You may be feeling the back of your body moving a little bit as your body's breathing. Skin stretching and softening. And if you come to the front of the trunk of your body, I'm curious there to any movements you can feel around your abdomen as your body simply breathes in and out. Perhaps you can feel the abdomen stretching a little bit as the body's breathing in. The abdomen softening as the body's breathing out. Same curiosity to sensations that are occurring in your chest. Maybe the ribs moving. Skin stretching and softening. Right now, what other physical sensations are available to you in the chest as your body just organically breathes? One breath at a time. Over and over again, inviting the mind back in a friendly way to the body breathing. And now bringing your awareness to the breath at the nose. The nose is blocked. Your body naturally breathes at the mouth. So here we're feeling the cool air moving in through the nose or mouth. Noticing the warm air leaving. Noticing this next new breath that's never been breathed before. Coming in, coolness, and leaving warmth. Now having a sense of your whole body. Your whole body sitting. Different sensations coming and going in your body, including the sensations of breathing. Twitches, areas of warmth, areas of coolness, movements of the ribs, feelings in the feet, whatever you're noticing in your body moment to moment. Now moving from feelings, sensations in your body, to paying attention to sounds. Bear attention to whatever sound is coming to your awareness in each new moment. Perhaps the sounds are very subtle. Maybe there's a loud sound. Maybe there are sounds in your own body. Sounds of the digestive system. Maybe subtle sounds in the breath. And again, coming back to your whole body. Deliberately wriggling your toes. Noticing you're doing that. It's a quiet, still body, and there's the wriggling of your toes and stretching your fingers and the way you'd like to stretch your fingers. And the way you'd like to keep stretching through your body. Yeah, that curiosity of where you feel like stretching. And resting in your own timing. And thank you. So, back to you, Meredith, or whoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Amara. Thank you, Amara. I feel very rested. That was lovely. I don't know that we have too many questions coming in, but I guess there was something that I wanted to ask Meredith. I'll just move this out. One of the things that that I think we wanted to ask was what advice you might have for a carer very new to their journey. You were able to openly and honestly and beautifully share your journey, weaving it in amongst Ari's journey, and what things brought up for you, what nourished you and nurtured you at each chapter along the way. I guess I was just wondering, what advice might you give back to someone who's at the start of their journey?
I think really what was most sustaining for me, right back hospital days, was finding other families. It was so important because you knew that they were really the only people who truly understood. And when Ari was in hospital, she was only 17, and she was in an adult hospital all the time. But we found one family in intensive care, and I just ran after them. And the conversations we could have with them, they were actually from Brisbane, and their daughter had a very rare form of brain cancer. But we could really support each other, and I invited them back to our house. So I would really, and I think having Synapse as a way of perhaps connecting you to other families, because I used to say to the doctors all the time, where are the other families? Please, here's my telephone number. Please pass it on, because that's the thing that was really missing. And it's so hard, as you've already said, because we're all so busy just, dealing with those very raw moments. But if you can find community and other people who have that lived experience, and I know I for one would be more than happy to talk to anyone who's going through just right at the beginning of their journey, because I really felt completely at sea. And just it would have been so helpful if I had more of those family, not my family, but people who were going through something similar, and people who had daughters or sons of a similar age, because it's like, how can you find, we're grasping on for connection really, and I think try and find that connection and nurture those through that would be what I'd recommend.
Thank you. I don't think you can overestimate the power of connection between people who have similar lived experiences. It's something that we are very aware of in our programs, of the need to connect people who have similar life experiences, because the power in that, the knowledge, the wisdom in that, and the ability to share that is incredibly powerful. I'm going to spin it on its head now for you though, Meredith, and just ask, we in Synapse, in our work, we have individuals who are caring for a person who sustained their brain injury 40 years ago and are struggling to find time for themselves, to find self, to overcome the structures or the guilt or all those things in place that are stopping them finding that space for themselves. So I'm going to really make it hard for you and ask if you have any advice for those people.
To me, it actually boils down to having a support team around you who you really trust and can rely on. And that took me a long time to sort of build up. But, going through an online platform like Higher Up, it just means you get to know your support workers very well. And even asking for help, I'd feel guilty about, but I don't anymore. Absolutely not. So I think, long term, it's building up the circle of support for yourself. But the best way you can do that and feel free to have some time is if you know that your loved one is actually being supported. Because if you're going away and you don't feel confident with those supports, then you won't enjoy yourself or be able to re-energize. So, I think it's really crucial to set in place supports that, and be choosy and and on online platforms, there are a load of people out there. So you can really match it. You can look at people's profiles and you can see where they might match. So I think once you have that support, then that takes the sort of stress off worrying about, what is my loved one going to be doing while I'm out, having a party. But it's really important. And, tuning into programs like, mindfulness, because I couldn't imagine when Amara first told me about MBSR, I thought, I need that. I absolutely need that, but it's impossible. But nothing is impossible. It's like, okay, how can I make this happen? So I really think it's changing your mindset. And I mean, at the beginning, when we didn't have, I relied on friends. So I'd ring people up, and then, they were fantastic. But I wanted something outside, friends and family, so that, people who are getting paid to do that, but not just for the money. So I think it's once you have that team, then it does give you the freedom, and thinking about that idea of getting a coordinator for your team, because that's, then you can take another step back.
I think that's one of the goals for many people in your situation, similar situations, how to find the balance between being a carer and being the mum or the husband or the son or whatever it happens to be, that you want to keep that connection with your loved one that you had before. And two things you said there really struck me. First of all, asking for help. It isn't a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength. And having that willingness to put yourself out there and say, actually, I really need that, whether it's MBSR or whether it's psychotherapy or whatever it happens to be, I really need that. And in doing that, I am going to get the sustenance I need to continue as a person, and it will actually help the person I'm caring for as well. So thank you, Meredith. I've had goosebumps most of the evening. It's been an absolutely beautiful session that has shown us the absolute courage that you have, Meredith, and the strength, and how lucky we all are to have Ari's humour in our lives. She's a beautiful girl. So thank you for sharing all of your story, and thank you for inviting Amara along to teach us some wonderful mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques. So thank you very much. Thank you. Meredith, you did beautifully. Thank you.